Welcome to Sabbath Collective, a community of people interested in celebrating the Sabbath and pursuing God through a Hebraic worldview of the Bible. So, we're in this pretty interesting series, Losing Church and Finding God. And we talked about finding God through other people, through humanity, through community. And tonight we're going to talk about how we can find God through the mind. Now, I just want to qualify, this is not a series telling you to leave your local church. There's a lot of us that are very happy. We found churches, it's working for us, great. But for those of us who feel that we're dissatisfied, and we talked about that a couple weeks ago, why those reasons are to a lot of people with the Western church construct, and have chosen to leave that, the big question to them is, am I okay? And how can I find God? So for many of us, hey, Carol, great to see you. Shabbat Shalom. For many of us, church attendance and the Western church experience always is the vehicle that sort of spoon feeds us. It gives us that emotional lift we are looking for, right? The music, the people, the sermon, the energy. It all kind of gives us a boost and makes us feel connected. And it is actually an external source for feeling connectivity. So for those of us who choose to leave that Western church model, there will be a perceived void to fill. And in order to deal with that, we've got to know some things. First of all, we absolutely know this. And if you've been around with us for a little bit, you definitely know this to be true. The Western Greek worldview is about nouns. In other words, it's about people, places, and things. That's the Western Greek worldview. It's noun driven, people, places, and things. It's also about events or destinations. In other words, one big event or where I'm going. And so the Western church model and faith is oftentimes connected to going to a building, because that's a noun, right? And seeing and hearing things. So again, it's nouns, people, places, things, seeing and hearing them, and then the event or the destination. We don't do church, we go to church with a Western mindset. It's an event that happens on Sunday at a building. The Hebraic worldview is about verbs or doing. It's about journey and process. And boy, that may seem like it's a little, there's a small nuance there, but that is a really big difference. We are on a journey of discovery from the Hebraic worldview and practice of faith. Now, Hebraic faith can have a building, it can have an event. In fact, we see that throughout the Bible and throughout Judaism. It very much has a building. In fact, one of those was the tabernacle. It was portable, and they tore it down and then they put it up, or the temple. So it can have a building, it can have events like festivals, but it doesn't have to, which is why Judaism has survived throughout the years when they lost their building, when they lost the ability to be able to observe their events. But their faith continued because they don't think like Western Greeks, right? They have a Hebraic worldview. Hey, Michael, great to see you. Shabbat Shalom. So again, this is the difference, and it's a pretty big difference. So I want to look at a verse, and this is a verse that is very commonly used by the Western church. This is only part of this verse. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, right? Probably most of you know this verse by heart. So let's look at this part of this verse, the difference between Greek and Hebrew. The Greek worldview is seen in green. And the Greek worldview would say that this verse is about God, about the world, and about the Son, Yeshua. Those are the nouns, right? So the Greek worldview would say, hey, this is about God, it's about the world, and it's about the Son. That's what this verse is about. The The Hebraic worldview is in the blue. And the Hebraic worldview would say this verse is about love and giving, or the verbs. And again, this is a big difference in the way that we relate. It's a significant difference in the way we relate. This Western church model of buildings and events ticks all the boxes of our felt Western Greek needs, right? Light shows. Hey, Rebecca, great to see you. Shabbat Shalom. Phoebe, good to see you too. Shabbat Shalom out there in California. Light shows and the music by professionals and a person spoon feeding the spectators. Maybe an attractive person greets me at the door. We have maybe an emotional walk down an aisle, a cup of coffee perhaps at a coffee bar in a soft chair. How will we know and feel God without those people, places, and things, right? Now, again, there's nothing wrong with those things, but the Greek worldview shapes our relating to those things in a way that tells us that's what church is. And that's where we feel God. And if we don't have those things, then how will we know and feel God? Following, hey Derek, great to see you. Shabbat Shalom. Following his 12th birthday, we read something interesting in Luke 2:52. It says, and Yeshua grew both in wisdom and in stature, gaining favor both with the other people and with God. Now, I really love this verse, and I love it for many reasons. But first of all, it talks here about how Yeshua grew mentally, physically, spiritually, and socially, right? And all those things, the whole person, are important. And it says that he gained favor with God and with people. And favor is from the Greek word charis, which means grace and joy and love and provisions and all that good stuff. So here he grew wisdom mentally, stature physically, socially, and spiritually. And we're actually talking about finding God. And for many of us who have left that Western organized church, how do we find God? Well, here's an example of Yeshua as a young man of 12, growing in areas that are pleasing to the Father, mentally, physically, socially, and spiritually. And so we're going to talk tonight about the mental part, the mind, right? Yeshua grew. That word for grow is the Greek word prokopto, and it means to beat forward or to lengthen as a metalsmith forges metals. So if you could imagine this, when a metalsmith takes his tool and sort of works on that metal, there's some friction there, right? There's some resistance even, and the metal is worked with until it lengthens. And that's what this word is connected to, prokopto. As a metaphor, it means to promote or to proceed. So we see here that Yeshua grew, and as we're about to get into how he grew mentally, how he grew in the mind, and how that was pleasing to God, growing is a work that connotes a partnership here, right? It is definitely not a spectator event, right? When you're the metal, somebody has a hold of that tool, that instrument, and hopefully that's the Lord or that's somebody that we trust. And we literally, the metal is working with the instrument in order to allow oneself to be promoted, to proceed, to lengthen. So growing is a work that talks about partnership. And it definitely is something that we do. It says here, Yeshua grew, prokopto, in wisdom. Now, how many of you have always thought that the mind possibly wasn't important to God? Like maybe he wasn't even cool with us using our minds. Maybe you've even heard pastors preach that, yeah, if you think too much, that's when you get into trouble, right? I personally have heard that a lot. It says here in the text, he grew in wisdom. And that's the Greek word Sophia. And it translates clever, skillful, intelligent, and wise. So Yeshua grew in being clever, skillful, intelligent, and wise. Now, a couple years back, we had a scientist. We've actually had a few scientists be part of our community over the years, but we had a scientist that was part of our community who came for maybe about a year or 2 years as he was living in New York at that time. And he said something interesting to me when he was about ready to move to his next job. He said, I want to thank you for this community because I always thought I had to split myself and be a soul on Sunday in order to relate to God, who I thought didn't really even like the human mind. And then when I would go to my Monday through Friday work as a scientist, that's when I had to be a mind. So there was this sort of cognitive dissonance, right? This schizophrenia he had to experience. But that's not necessary. It says here in Luke 2:52, Yeshua grew in wisdom, in stature, physically. He grew mentally, physically, spiritually, and socially. And he had God's favor. So mentally is good. And when we grow mentally, it pleases God. Now, there are many Hebrew equivalents for the Greek word Sophia. One of them is the Hebrew word Chokmah. Now, Chokmah is a pretty cool word. Chokmah, and I'm going to let you see this a little closer. Chokmah is more about doing than thinking. Chokmah is more about doing than thinking. Okay? While the Greek concept, wrong card. While the Greek concept, here we go. While the Greek concept is more about thinking or learning, Chokmah is more about doing than thinking. Okay, so again, wisdom focuses mainly on, sorry, I am putting up the wrong cards for you guys. I'm very, very sorry. Here we go. I checked them right before we went on, and I checked them a little too well. Okay, Chokmah is about doing. The Hebrew concept of wisdom goes beyond an intellectual pursuit of knowledge to the practical, to the ability to live one's daily life using wisdom in concrete ways. And that's very important. So, sorry, I am really messing up these cards today. Yeshua acquired knowledge through the process of learning and doing. And he gained insight and understanding through the normal process of human intellectual development, of learning and doing. Now, we need to ask ourselves this: where does this word chokmah first happen? The first verse in the Torah in which we find the word chokmah, and there's a principle called the principle of first mention, which you probably heard me say before. So when you have a word like wisdom, chokmah, we ask ourselves, what's the first time that was mentioned in Scripture? And the first time it was mentioned in Scripture is Exodus 28:3. And it says this: God gives instructions to Moses concerning the priestly garments to be made for Aaron and his son. And it says this: speak to all the craftsmen to whom I have given the spirit of wisdom, and have them make Aaron's garments. So, God gave wisdom to craftsmen in order that they might do something. And that something that they would do serve both God and the community. In Hebrew biblical thinking, it is considered wisdom to do a job well. The process of wisdom makes you learn the good thing, and then you know by doing the good thing. So growing mentally is not merely an intellectual ascent. It's the kind of knowing that manifests in what we do. Are you with me on that? Pretty cool. Brene Brown, which how many of you know Brene Brown? She's amazing. If you've read any of her books or looked at her TED Talks, Brene Brown in Rising Strong, an excellent book, writes creativity embeds knowledge so that it can become practice. Let me say that one more time. Creativity embeds knowledge so that it can become practice. We move what we're learning from our heads to our hearts through our hands. She says we move what we're learning through our heads to our hearts through our hands. We are born makers, and creativity is the ultimate act of integration. It is how we fold our experiences into our being. The Asaro tribe of Indonesia and Papua New Guinea has this beautiful saying. I'm going to zoom in on it so you can see it, and it is the right card, okay? Knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in the muscle. Isn't that amazing? This Asaro tribe completely sums up the Hebrew word of chokmah, right? Of this kind of wisdom. Wisdom is doing. Knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in the muscle. Oh man, I just love that. So we very much see that through a Hebraic mindset that knowledge is not just an intellectual assent. Knowledge is doing. Yahweh was pleased that Yeshua grew in wisdom, in learning the good things and doing the good things. So, you want to find God? You want to know Him apart from an organized religion? Do you want to feel Him? Then grow in wisdom. Just like the verse said, Yeshua did. And when we grow in wisdom, and we're going to get into growing physically, and we already talked about growing socially. When we grow in wisdom, we feel Him because His grace, His charis is going to be with us. We learn, we know, and we do. And all three of those work together. We don't just learn for the sake of acquiring information. Again, to the Hebrew mind, you haven't learned unless you've done. So we learn, we know, and we do. Proverbs 4:7, this is such a cool verse. It says, the beginning of wisdom is get wisdom. So again, if you want to have wisdom, if you want to know what the beginning is, get wisdom. There it is, very simple. So how do we get wisdom? As we who are maybe on the journey, maybe we've left this organized church structure, maybe not, maybe we just want to know how we can find God wherever we are, and we see this verse about Yeshua, and we see that as he grows mentally, and again the word Sophia, wisdom, as he grows in wisdom, he has God's favor. And Proverbs tells us the beginning of wisdom is get it. So how do you get it? Well, you can read scriptures. And how many of you, let me see a thumbs up, or if you have a struggle with this, how many, when you read scriptures, are able to download wisdom? Or maybe when you read scriptures, you think, yeah, I don't know how to apply this to my life. What's your experience when you read scriptures? Do you feel like it's a place of wisdom for you? You can read scriptures and you can get wisdom, but how is it working practically for you? Let me see your comments there. You can also read books about God. And I tell this to people a lot. Sometimes when they read the Bible, it just seems like, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. I'm confused. It seems like it's overwhelming. There's a lot of war. There's a lot of bloodshed. Like, I don't get it. I just get confused. I don't feel closer to God. Okay, fine. If that's how you're relating to it right now, read a book about God. Read a book about God that when you read it, makes you feel like you know Him more, like you can trust Him more, like you can sense His presence more. You can watch or listen to teachers. Rebecca, Hey, Shabbat Shalom. You can watch or listen to teachers, other people talking about how they have found wisdom, or even their stories, their faith stories, which is sometimes so encouraging. And when we hear their stories, we glean a wisdom, a practical application for our own life. One thing you can do all on your own that is connected to this mental growing, and I'm going to throw out something to you right now, and I know for some of you it's going to be like, ah, I can't do that. I tried it. I can't do it. But let me just tell you this before I say the word. It is a mental growing, okay? I believe that it's very difficult to increase in wisdom without it, and it is a absolute life changer. And this one thing that you can do to grow in wisdom is meditation. Now, how many already when I said meditation went, oh no? But meditation is very much connected to wisdom, to the mind. Joshua 1:8, the Lord says, meditate on this book of the law, for then you shall have good success. Very important. Meditate. This is an ancient practice. And again, when we look at it, when we look at the ancient primitive words here, the pictographs, we kind of see the deeper meaning to it. The primitive root here of meditation, which means to meditate, is the word Hagah. And the ancient pictographs are Hey, Gimel, and Hey. Now, the Hey is the picture of the upraised arms. It's a person who is looking into something with wonder. It means to reveal, and it is also connected to breath. That's really interesting that this letter is used, Hagah, with meditation. There's two of these Heys in this word, which is connected to breath. The middle letter is the letter Gimel, and Gimel is an ancient pictograph of a foot, and it's also an ancient pictograph of a camel. So the foot suggests to walk and to journey and to gather, even, and the camel suggests lifting up, and it's also connected to carrying water. Carrying water. You were going to say meditation, Michael? Which would be pretty cool if you were. It's connected to carrying water. So here the gimel is the foot, the walk, the journey, lifting up and carrying water. And then we see hey again. When hey is at the end of the word, it also means behold or revelation, but it also suggests what comes out of it. So what that means is when we look at the concept of Hagah or meditation, the story being told of Hagah is to observe, to wonder at something, and revelation will come out of it. And it has to also do with lifting up, drinking in because of the water, right? And breath. Psalm 63:6 says, when I remember you on my bed and meditate on you in the night watches. So it's this sense of being alone and being quiet. The act of meditation involves beholding and breathing, doesn't it? And revelation comes. How many people, hey Jean, Shabbat Shalom, good to see you. How many people have tried meditation and have really maybe struggled with it? And if you have a struggle, let me see that under your comments, what you struggle with. And if you're maybe just getting into it now and you're growing in it, let me see what it's doing in your life. So the Talmud gives clear support to the values of meditation as a lifestyle and suggests that a strong commitment to this inner work has great spiritual rewards in Baruch 32b. From Catholicism to the Protestants to the disciplines of yoga and Hindu and Judaism and Islam, we find that people everywhere in different practices meditate. And the processes they may use are possibly different. The words may be different, the sounds may be different, but they all basically have the same goal, and that's oneness with God. In the sense that meditation is, and again, we're talking about growing as Yeshua grew in wisdom, which is mentally. Meditation is bringing the mind into oneness with God, with our heart, with ourselves. Everyone who meditates uses some essential elements in the meditative process. And before we get into that, I want to see what you wrote here. Struggling with staying in the moment at times. Yes, Michael, and Rebecca says I'm not very good at it. So let's talk about that. Because I've been hardcore meditating for a couple of years now. When I say hardcore, I mean I meditate for an hour every day, every morning. And after that is when I pray for everyone in our community by name. And I just kind of pray as I'm led, or if someone has a prayer request specific, I'm praying for that as well. So it's very much connected to meditation. I meditate first and then I pray. Diana says I need to be in quiet space. Absolutely. I listen to worship music, I listen to scripture, and I meditate. Great. Thank you, Diana. So there are some elements in the meditative practice. One is relaxation, right? You don't want to be stressed and thinking about the day's work and what you have to do at the store, and if you need a new Metro card, if you filled up your gas tank, like you don't want to be thinking about that. Somehow you need to be relaxed, and breath work is a very important part of that for me in my experience, which is why it's really interesting that breath is part of this Haggah. Hey means breath, and even the way it sounds, which is always very connected in Hebrew, hey, very connected to breath. So it's really cool that Haggah is meditation, right? There's two of those. Breath work. There's all kinds of things that you can do. Dr. Weil has a cool thing where he says you breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. Big breath through your nose. You hold it for 7 seconds. Then you breathe it out for 8 seconds slowly through your mouth. And you do that about 8 times. And what happens in the brain, I'm not going to get into the whole neuroscience with this. I did talk about neuroscience a bit with visions and meditation in that vision series. I would love to, because I'm a big neuroscience freak, especially when it comes to meditation, but I just can't do it. I don't have the time to get into it. So let me just say that kind of breathing, or whatever breathing works for you, it literally gets the brain thinking in a different way. And it works with children to talk them off a ledge. It works with you to calm you down. It refocuses your brain, let's say. So whatever form of breathing works, try to incorporate that in the preparation of your meditation, or maybe during the meditation. Can be focus. And sometimes I like to listen to guided meditations where people talk about things, and I listen to that in meditation. Sometimes I listen to music, but for me personally, if I listen to music that has words, or I start singing along with it, so that doesn't work for me, but for some people it works perfect for them. There's no right or wrong. But again, there's focus. It could be focus on a word. I use the word Shema a lot in my meditation. If I'm not listening to guided meditation, but a kind of music, I say to myself the word Shema a lot. Shema is Hebrew for hear and do, interestingly enough, which is what we're talking about tonight. So I just focus on that word. And plus, I love the way it sounds, Shema. And so I'll say it in my mind sometimes, and then that can bring me back a bit. When there's focus, it can be a thought, it could be a hopeful future where you picture something, where you envision something, and you feel what it's going to feel like to you, and you emotionally connect with that. That's a beautiful thing to do in meditation as well. And then your brain says, oh, this is what we want. And so your brain works towards that, which is beautiful. Again, if a thought comes into your mind, don't get stressed out about it. Hey, Sarah, love you, honey. Don't get stressed out. Rebecca's saying, I don't know how to relax. Yeah, it's why you need to find the right tools, Rebecca. And everybody has different tools. It could be music, it could be where you say a word over and over again. And just know this, it took me quite a while to get where I could even go 5 minutes without losing my train of thought and bringing myself back. But what I heard somebody say one time that really helped me is when you're first learning how to meditate, if an invasive thought comes into your mind, like, oh man, I got to contact this person, you just observe it. You don't judge it. It's not good or bad. You don't beat yourself up like, stupid Donnie, you can't even stay focused for 5 minutes. What's wrong with you? There's no shame. There's no guilt. There's not even any judgment. Okay? You just observe it, and then you let it go, and then you go right back to it again. And you learn, and your brain learns. Okay? And if you ever remember when you were a kid, and you remember laying on the grass maybe, or on a rooftop of your building and looking out over the stars or looking at the lights or whatever you did, and you just kind of drifted away and an hour went by and you didn't even know where you were, you can do that. Okay? It is possible. You did it when you were a kid. So you know how to do it. You just have to remember how to do it. So, and finally, there's Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving, as many people say, gratitude is the ultimate form of receivership. So after you're done with your meditation, you thank the Lord for whatever came into your mind, whatever you want to thank Him for. You can thank Him for something that hasn't yet happened because you just envisioned what it was going to feel like when it did. You can thank Him for answering a prayer, or thank Him for something that you noticed or thought of. Whatever it is, gratitude is very important, and it connects the heart, the mind, the soul, the body, the spirit, the Lord. The contemporary scholar and practitioner of meditation, Aryeh Kaplan, recounts in his books Meditation in the Bible and his other book, Jewish Meditation, a Practical Guide. He says there are various forms of Jewish meditation throughout all the ages. So, in other words, it's basically whatever works for you. Okay? There's no right or wrong way to do this. And again, you don't have to worry about, oh man, what if some evil thing takes over my mind because of, that's fear. Okay? And when you are trying to grow in your relationship with the Lord, and you are seeing that Yeshua grows in wisdom mentally, and you're trying to grow in mentally too by using a tool, a discipline that He's given you, meditation, you don't want fear to be a part of that. Fear has no place in that. Okay? Whatever works for you. But know this, meditation and its effects are scientifically quantifiable. And again, I don't have time to get to all this, but you can look it up and you can see it for yourself. They can measure it, they can take scans of it. Their immune system goes up, their IgAs go up, they have revelations, they have the ability to forgive because of something that they felt or saw in meditation. All kinds of miraculous things happen in meditation. And meditation is about focusing, quieting the mind, allowing it to relax, allowing it to be open enough to receive. If you want to find God, it's possible to find Him without meditation. But I will tell you this, meditation makes it a whole lot easier. And it also gives you the ability to find yourself, to know your own heart. Quiet your mind and your divine heart will speak. C.S. Lewis has a really cool concept about this in The Weight of Glory, a really amazing book, by the way. He says, we live, in fact, in a world starved for solitude, silence, and private. So we live in a world that's starved for solitude, silence, and private. He used the word private, but let's say privacy. It just sounds better. Starved for solitude, silence, and privacy. And therefore starved for meditation and true friendship. And that is just such an awesome quote. Without solitude, being alone, without silence, without privacy, there cannot be meditation and true connection. I think somebody said that I have to be alone. Michael's saying struggling with staying in the moment. Yeah, exactly. At times, that's a thing, right? That's a discipline of the mind. Without solitude, without silence, without privacy, there cannot be meditation and true connection. Our world hates to be alone and can't stand the sound of silence and wants secrecy but does not honor privacy. That's a big difference. To have a life of meditation, one will have all those things. So learn, and then learn not only to know, but to do. And in that wisdom, Yahweh is found, just like we read with Yeshua. So we're going to close this time with the lighting of the Shabbos candles. By the way, let me know how you're doing with the meditation. Um, Traditionally, the mothers light the candles, which connect us to the Sabbath light of peace, joy, and unity. She circles her hands around the flames 3 times, which is a gesture that welcomes in the Sabbath. And then she prays, "Blessed are you, Yahweh our God, King of the universe, who has set us apart by his commandments, who has given us Yeshua the Messiah, and has sent us to be a light to the world. Amen." Shabbat Shalom.